So JD Vance does not believe in Jesus Christ. And I'm going to show you how. I know that may be a crazy opening line to some of you, like, what, Brando? JD don't believe in Jesus? No, he really doesn't, because he's not going to bat for the teachings of Jesus. Instead, what he's saying now to his voters is that when you go out to a waiting room, the reason why you can't get waited on is because of all the illegal immigrants. And that's why that you're having to wait longer in the waiting room. I have yet to read a verse, and I've been dusting off my Bible and reading through it. I have yet to read a verse where Jesus refused help to anyone, but Vance does. Take a look.
The government. Your final question about illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on. That's one thing. The second thing, Matt.
First of all, I'm in one of the reddest places in the country. I'm in the buckle of the Bible Belt, so I can tell you that when I have went to the ER or been in an ER, I have never seen a Latino person in our ERs. I've not saw anyone like that because I'm in one of the whitest areas that there possibly could be. But I can tell you I've not seen it. However, if I were to, I wouldn't even question, are they here legally? Are they here not legally? I would say, hey, you're here first, and you get the help you need. And I believe that health care is a human right. I believe that everyone should have it. I don't think that anyone should be denied. I don't think that anyone should be turned away. And the arrogance and the pompousness of this prick to sit there and suggest, hey, when you go now into the waiting room, look around and look at those brown people that are getting ahead of you and be a judgmental prick. That's what he's saying. That's what he's essentially saying here. Let's just call it for what it is. He's encouraging his base to be racist. He's encouraging his base to be judgmental. How about this? How about you be glad you've got a hospital right now, because a lot of them's probably going to end up closing down thanks to the big, beautiful bill. But while you still got one, how about you appreciate it? How about you sit there and be glad you got it? And not be sitting here looking over and going, oh, I can't believe they're getting to go first. What a pompous prick. Really, it's absolutely insane that these people rides the coattail of Christianity and tries to act like they're the ones that are the high and mighty ones and they're the ones that's got God on their side, when they would go to a waiting room and be mad that someone got to go in front of them. I have never had that thought. I have never looked around. When I'm sitting in an ER, whether it be me that's sick or one of my children that's sick or my mom or my dad that's sick, I have never looked around the room and went, well, I wonder what color that person is and what political party does that person belong to. If I walked into a waiting room, which is highly more likely where I'm at, if I walked into a waiting room and there sat the biggest Trump supporter decked out in Trump gear from head to toe, if he was in front of me, I'm going to lay back on the ropes and go, you were here first. I want to see you get the help you need. But they can't say that because they would rather see people suffer and die. That's why I said at the start of the video that JD Vance don't believe in Jesus, and neither does half the people that voted for Trump, because they just used it as a stage prop to get them over the finish line. That's all Christianity has ever been to the Republican Party. And it's been that way my entire life when I was a kid, seeing Ronald Reagan and the moral majority. That was all BS, and we all knew it. They used Christianity as a stage prop, and I did a little digging here. I'm going to play you a clip from James Talarico, because he always brings the truth. And when we get done watching this clip, I'm going to bring you all some stats about Jesus healing the sick in the Bible. And I can already tell you that 0 times he refused. But take a listen here at Talarico, because Talarico always brings it.
Tell me how you see this moment in our politics.
Well, you know that in addition to being a lawmaker, I'm also a seminarian. And if you read the New Testament, Jesus doesn't spend most of his time preaching or teaching or even praying. He spends most of his time healing the sick. Right now, we have politicians in Congress with Christ follower in their Twitter bio, but they are kicking the sick off their health care. We, as lawmakers, especially those of us who proclaim a devout faith, have a special obligation to heal people, not make them sicker. I feel like we oftentimes sanitize this discussion about healthcare by talking about premiums and continuing resolutions, but a budget is a moral document. What happens to people when they can't afford their health insurance? Diabetics ration their insulin, seniors skip their medications, and ultimately people die. And that's exactly what will happen if these Republican cuts are all passed. There's an estimate that 51,000 Americans will die needlessly if all of these cuts go through. That's 51,000 flesh and blood human beings. That's a moral crime. And we have to do so much better in this country. And again, this isn't really just about policy. It's not about politics. This is about morality. And I think we need to talk more about that.
He's always so spot on. And I tell you what I would challenge anyone out there to do. Because imagine if you had no clue who JD Vance was and no clue who James Talarico was. If you just took the last two clips that I played and just got the transcript, and then you went to any church, your church, wherever, and you sat down with the minister and you said, I'm going to read to you two different quotes from two different people. And I want you to tell me which one falls closer to being in line with Jesus Christ and his teachings. And you just read those blind, and they didn't know who said it. If you read those two transcripts blind side by side, it's clear that J.D. Vance's would nowhere near resemble Jesus Christ, and Talarico's would, and any Christian worth their salt would admit that. So I did a little digging because I wanted to know how many times that Jesus healed people in the Bible. I found some different numbers, but I found that 47 times in the Bible he healed one or two people at a time. He even raised Lazarus from the dead, so there's that one. But then 17 times he did miracles in the person's presence. 0 times, folks. 0 times he refused. And I couldn't find any verse where he said, wait a minute, where are those people from? I never saw him say, well, now wait a minute, you're not the right color skin, you're not the right nationality, you're not the right religion, you're not the right political party. As a matter of fact, from what I found, Jesus always said that his kingdom was not of this world, and that he came down here to love people and to forgive people and to offer people a way. But they found a way, the Republicans did, and they've been doing this my entire life, by the way. Hell, they've been doing it before I was ever born. They found a way to bastardize those teachings and use them as a stage prop. And that's all it ever was to these people. They never were about living it. And they appealed to the worst of people, and now the worst of people have the ball, and that's why so many people have walked away from Christianity, myself included. That's why so many of us walked away, is because you can't be guilty by association. You know, I know that there's good Christians out there. I talk to them all the time. I have friends that are Christians. My mother is a Christian, one of the greatest people I've ever known. And I'm not just saying that because she was my mom. If she wasn't, I tell you, I'd be truthful about it. If my mom was a piece of crap, I'd be the first one to tell you. She's not. She's a Christian. She believes. She always has. But she doesn't go to church around here. You want to know why? Because the minute the congregation finds out she's a Democrat, then she's no longer made to feel welcome. And all she's ever wanted was to see people taken care of. All she's ever wanted was to see people have health care and a living wage and be taken care of. All she's wanted to see was people not be judged. But yet she's made to feel unwelcome. And I have to really, really rein it in hard and pump the brakes when I'm talking about these churches around here that have made my mom feel that way. Because first of all, I wouldn't set foot in any of them that's up there quoting Donald Trump. There's no way I would ever be associated with them. But it's just sickening that a good person tries to go, and because they believe in the teachings of Jesus, they're made to feel unwelcome. Well, in any other era, if J.D. Vance had said that in a church, they would have ran him out of the room. But these days, they would embrace him. That's what's so screwed up about this world. That is what, to me, folks, is just so screwed up about all of this. James Talarico's right. This is a moral issue. People are going to die because of this. And you want to call yourself the pro-life party? No, again, that's just something else you're using as a stage prop to strip rights away from women. So I'm never going to let these people, I said in a previous video, and I got more emails over the video where I said that I believe in the teachings of Jesus more than they do. I meant that. I do. I believe in the teachings of Jesus more than they do. I can't stand seeing his words bastardized, and I'm never going to let it happen. I may be agnostic in the sense that I don't know how we got here. I don't know if the world was created in 6 days. I don't know all of that, and I don't know where we go when it's over. But I know that those words in red mean something, and I know that JD Vance is not applying them to his way of life. Talarico is. So I'm never going to let them off the hook on that. If there are Christians that are going to bat for people like Talarico, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate Talarico. But to the Christians who sit back on the ropes and are quiet about this and don't call JD Vance out for this, well, there's plenty of Bible verses for you too. So I would suggest you dust off that copy. Just quit using it as a coffee table ornament. Quit just using it as something you hold in your lap while the preacher's talking. How about you open it up and see if you can find that hate and bigotry in there? You might find some in the Old Testament, but you ain't going to find it in those words in red. So dust it off and read it and understand that just because you sit and say that you're for Jesus doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see him on the other side. It says that too. Not everyone that says, Lord, Lord, will enter into the kingdom of heaven. There will be plenty of people standing in the last days going, well, I thought I did marvelous works in your name. And he'll say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity, for I never knew you. It's in there. Read it and brush up on it because you're probably going to need it.